Hello, hello, and good afternoon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. My name is Mo Syed, and I'm an immigration attorney with Offit Kurman. And today we are here to talk about the H-1B visa for the year 2024. We have some changes from prior years. I am delighted to be joined by my colleague, Sam Giunta, who is the Director of Human Resources at Offit Kurman. And Sam and I will be having a conversation about H-1B, and we will try to make this program productive for a wide variety of audiences. I know some of you might be new to this, others might be seasoned and working with organizations that have been our clients for years and are looking to get a sense of what the updates are. So thank you again for joining. I will be using a slideshow that hopefully you all can see on your screen right now. And we will, at the end of this program, have a recording available, as well as the slideshows will be emailed around to the audience as well. So please feel free to share this with other colleagues who may not be able to join live, but if you think it's useful and you know people that you can share this with, let them know. So before I jump in the topic, let me quickly introduce you to Sam. And so, as you can see in the bio, Sam is a very experienced and well-known in the community of human resource executives. He has had a really distinguished career and across a variety of industries. Getting to know Sam in the years that I've been here has been an absolute pleasure. So Sam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. And so we've provided contact information in the slides. So, you have email addresses and phone numbers. Reach out to us. And also, our plan today is to go through some of the PowerPoints. We'll share. We've got some scripted content, but really we do want this to be interactive. So if you have questions, please put them in you should see a Q&A box at the bottom. So post your questions in there. With that, let me just, we can get started. All right, so, why are we here today, and what is, why did we pick today's date, which is, well, happy Valentine's Day to you all. It does happen to be the early part of February, but we are also 2 weeks away from the March deadline for filing H-1B cases, entering the H-1B lottery technically, so which is upon us, and this is usually the season, and it's one of the few immigration processes that is actually driven by a deadline. And so this upcoming deadline is for professional occupations, for employers that are hiring for professional occupations to participate in there's a limited number of visas that are issued every year, and it is known as the H-1B cap, which is cap lottery. And so there's 85,000 such visas. And in order to have a chance at getting accepted, employers this is the threshold stage where employers have to submit the basic information about their potential employees. And once this March lottery, and we'll go into it in detail in the coming slides, we'll cover the nuts and bolts. We'll look at what we've learned from prior years. We'll give you some planning suggestions for this upcoming registration season. We'll look at some trends, and we'll take your questions. I mean, the overall structure of the program has stayed the same, but the implementation this year is changing. So we'll cover some of those concepts as we move forward. And then what I'll try to do is give an overview so that those of you who are currently interviewing candidates or making job offers, you can understand, okay, is this an H-1B candidate? What is the timing? What are the needs from the employer side? What is needed from the employee side? And then, how do we work with a lawyer to make the case successful? And, we'll get into some, some cases may not be suited for H-1Bs. We might suggest some other types of visas for them. Try to give a little bit of a historical overview of some of the lessons we've learned in the past, and then, leave with some practical tips. And so just real quick, I myself came to the US as a foreign student. It was from, I came as an undergrad student, went through college, and then got into law school. And then after law school, my first job that I got, they sponsored me for an H-1B. So I've had a long connection with the H-1B process. And so not only from a personal and, a employee side, and then now for many, many years representing companies, and, both for-profit, nonprofit, small, medium, large. I've seen this from a lot of different angles. But I want to pause here, and I would love to hear from you, Sam. Give us some thoughts from where you sit. And I'm just so glad. I know you're super busy, and give us some sense of how this topic, seems to you from where you sit, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks, Mo. I really appreciate it. And good afternoon, everyone, or well, really, depending on where you are, good morning or even good evening. But as far as today's conversation goes, from an HR perspective, today we're going to be delving into an increasingly relevant topic in today's globalized market, hiring foreign workers. And as an HR professional, I know that part of my responsibility is that we strive to build diverse and skilled workforces. And foreign talent really can offer some really cool, unique perspectives and some expertise. But understanding the process itself and navigating those complexities is very crucial, and often represents a true partnership between HR and your H-1B attorney like Mo. There's a business need for it, and I wanted to start by quickly touching on why this business need is important. The business need for talent is certainly multifaceted. Global markets demand multicultural understanding, some specialized skills that might be very scarce locally. Demographic shifts might even leave talent gaps in your area, and hiring a foreign worker can certainly help to address some of those needs. And for your company, it could even present a new way of thinking, potentially even fostering new levels of innovation and new levels of competitiveness. Let's be honest, at a high level, there's always some pros and cons that you'll have to weigh out. For me, the pros almost always outweigh those cons. The first one is that you'll certainly have you'll have access to a much wider talent pool to find the best candidate for the job. You'll be able to find hopefully a best fit regardless of nationality or locality. You may be able to fill some critical skill gaps by attracting talent with specialized skills that are unavailable in your area or within your current reach. You'll also increase those diverse perspectives and skills, which again, may enhance creativity, problem solving, and understanding on a global level. Some of the cons, and we're going to go through some of those today, are some increased complexity, navigating legal and paperwork hurdles, sponsorship costs, etc. There's going to be some cultural integration challenges. And from an HR perspective, we need to make sure that we're ensuring a welcoming environment and even addressing potential communication barriers. Of course, there's a time commitment. Recruiting and onboarding may potentially be slower due to some of the additional items. But from my own perspective, while hiring foreign workers adds complexity, consider it within the broader context of HR. Talent acquisition, for example, it's another avenue to source top talent alongside of all of your traditional methods. Onboarding and training, similar to onboarding of any new employee, we're going to be doing this with an added bit of cultural sensitivity. From a client compliance and legal perspective, there's some specific expertise. And from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, hiring foreign workers certainly reinforces your commitment to a diverse workforce. Hiring foreign workers offers significant benefits, and understanding its path and the process and nuances is key. And that is where we shall move on to the next portion of our presentation today. Mo, thank you.
Mo, you're muted.
Yes, sorry. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so let's look at some numbers here, right? So we discussed the cap, and the cap is the magic number, the 85,000 visas that are available. In the recent past, like this this slide that I'm showing you now, let me just we've got these numbers here, right? So just to give some context of where we are. Prior to this electronic system that we now have, let me show you some of the data. So starting 2013, for those 85,000 visa slots, we would have, let's say in 2013, there was 124,000 that applied, and of those 85,000 were selected. And you can see the number slowly creeping up. Now, a lot of it has to do with the economy. Like, you know, you just have a lot more jobs, need in tech sector, or there's certain sectors that are growth sectors. And so you're seeing a steady increase. But if you look now starting in, let's say, the 2021 year is when the electronic system was created, which is what we've had for the last few years now. And so you can see the increasing numbers, like from, 274,000 when it comes to 2024, which would be, that's the 2023 calendar year and the 2024 cap. So this year we're in the 2024 calendar year, and it's the 2025 cap that we're working towards. But so last year we saw 780,000 applicants for the lottery, which is only for 85,000 people. And so what unfortunately happened was that there were, as you can see in the second to last column, you had multiple registrations. So if you look at the for the 2024 row, and then you look at the column which says 408,891, so that's a lot of duplicates. So essentially, what employers started doing, because the registration process became somewhat convenient, because it's very easy to do now electronically, people started to try to game the system, and multiple registrations were put in. So this year, the big change is that, and I'm just kind of moving quickly here. Historically, we had full paper-based applications that would get submitted with all the filing fee and all the evidence. And then later, after receiving the paper, the lottery was run, and then the unlucky folks would get their full paper packets returned. That was a lot of waste of time and money. So the government switched to this electronic process, which became quite easier, where the attorney and the client, in combination, were able to just get on a website, submit a short form that had employee details, employer details, pay a $10 registration fee, and starting early part of March, and moving towards the late part of March, we would be advised that, okay, your registration was selected, and now you can proceed with the full application. So in many ways, that was a huge benefit. But because of this multiple registration problem, the rates of acceptance became extremely low. So like, if you look at this slide where, for this last year, out of the 780 lottery submissions, depending on which way you look at it, about between 10 to 14 or 15% were selected. So, that's really frustrating for, a lot of our clients who, have, the chance of selection gets reduced because you have so many duplicates. So now of those selected, then when you, and we'll get to the actual once you're selected, what the process is. We'll talk about that in a short bit. But once you're selected, then the chances of approval are fairly high. We can still get requests for evidence, so it's not automatic that you get selected in the lottery and you get like an automatic approved H-1B process. There's still, after the lottery, there are steps that are involved that before the employee is able to start working, depending on their specific situation. The earliest that they can start working in the H-1B position would be the October 1st date of the coming year. I mean, some of this data is a little bit older, like from 2019 and 2021 on the approved cases, which means after lottery, full application submission and approval, and then request for evidence. So we'll talk a little bit about how we get past the once we're selected in the lottery, what we need to do to make a successful petition. So let's just jump back a little bit so giving the sense of these numbers was important. And so what this new system that's been introduced, what it seeks to do, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping around the slides a little bit. So let's talk about, all right. So what is imminent is on March the 6th, the initial lottery registration period will start, and it will run to March 22nd, 2024. And I want to thank my partner, Michael Freestone. He's a fellow immigration attorney at Offit Kurman. He has helped me with these slides, and he's one of the other immigration lawyers at our firm, and his contact details are in this PowerPoint at the end. So Michael and I are right now primarily handling the H-1B registration cases for our firm. So anyway, so the basic details, the shift that's happening now is that in recognizing that in the past employees were trying to game the system and have multiple registrations submitted, the new registration process has been announced to be a beneficiary-centric process. So the change is that the electronic system has been now designed so that the beneficiary name and passport details can only be attached to one submission, and that person counts only once. So they're eliminating the duplication. So there's, anyway, so that, sounds simple enough. There's some questions that are still up in the air, like in terms of practically how this works out. Like, can employees still have multiple job offers and multiple employers submitting registrations for the same employee? I mean, there's some idea that the beneficiary, once they're notified that they're selected, they may entertain, they'll have to then select, okay, which employer is the one that gets to submit the final petition and use the actual lottery allocation. So anyway, so I'll leave it at that. I mean, the form, we don't have the new form yet. We'll be, starting February the 28th is when we will, well, there's two things, sorry. We'll know what the form looks like, soon. And there's one form, which is the lottery registration form. And then once if you're selected in the lottery, the other big change is that the USCIS is allowing for filing online the full H-1B petition. A website will be launched on February the 28th for non-cap petitions. They'll launch that February the 28th, and then H-1B cap subject online filing will open on April the 1st. So there's like a new lottery registration form under the same old website, but with new information they need. And then there's a brand new USCIS organizational filing account. And so anyway, so part of our challenge is to figure out how everything connects to everything else and all the steps to be done in the right manner. So some pointers around the lottery registration, right? So in the past, we we would ask for ID from the employees to have their correct full names and the spellings of their names and dates of births, etc. So, best practice to ask for IDs. However, now the lottery registration piece is going to be tied to an ID document. So along with the name, there will be a passport number entered. And so folks who are thinking that they could use a different passport number to enter a second, have another shot at the lottery, they can't do that. So it will be, a petition will be denied if it's discovered that a different passport number was used for the same individual. There are some exceptions, like if you have some persons may have difficulty obtaining a passport, USCIS will allow them to use travel documents, but there should be consistency in the identification documents that are being used. There are some situations in which inconsistency in identifying documents might be, tolerated, and that's where you have a legal name change due to a marriage, or changes in gender identity, or there's essentially a situation that's in one of the listed exceptions. So also, the USCIS retains some additional ability to deny an H-1B or revoke the registration if there are inconsistencies across the various forms and the different places that we have to provide information. So again, we're always very careful to maintain consistency, but because of the, just from a practical point of view, we all have to pay very careful attention that everything across the multiple online platforms is consistent, and should not be considered as a misrepresentation of immaterial fact. Let me pause here, Sam. Based on let me take a pause. I've tried to summarize some of the key changes. There are some filing fee changes that are also being implemented. I'll cover those shortly, but Sam, what do you think so far? Any questions? Anything that I can...
Mo, you've mentioned some really great tips, such as being consistent, paying attention to the forms, even things like checking IDs for the correct spelling of names. And that's obviously very important in HR. As an HR professional, what are some of the biggest challenges we might face when sponsoring an H-1B employee? And how do you think we can best prepare for them?
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. So the way the first concept is that for employers who have not used the H-1B system before, there's mystery shrouding the process. There's a lot of question marks, like, okay, do we, by taking on a non-immigrant worker, are we creating additional liabilities? Are we, can we treat them the same way we treat, in terms of, are there additional obligations that we have to our employees who are H-1Bs versus, U.S. citizens or permanent residents? So there's definitely some uncertainty. So I think addressing and then logistically, I would say the first one that I would, shed some clarity on is that, let's say you have a foreign student. The first challenge is that when a person that is not yet on an H-1B, like they're here in the U.S., they're in a program of education, and they're interviewing, and HR is what typically HR will ask me is like, hey, Mo, we have somebody that's on an F1 visa, and here are some documents. Hey, can we hire them now? When can we hire them? And so let me get into the timeline a little bit. So for most F1 students, which F1 is the visa type for when you're a foreign student, it's the most common visa type. There are some other visa types. So let's say you're in the spring and you're in recruiting, and this person has a graduation date coming up in May. Now the H-1B process will help you to, if that candidate is selected, the H-1B will give them authorization to start from October 1st of that year as a full-time or part-time employee in a specific profession that aligns with their degree. Now, one of the challenges for employers is that in between their graduation and that October start date, do they have some what is known as OPT, which most students that graduate on F1 visas, they're given 1 year of work authorization. So typically, that 1 year is when the employer can, without much, like they have this authorization, a pre-authorization attached to their existing student visa. An employer can hire them, give them a test run. If they like them, they can keep them, and there's not a gap in between the graduation date. They can stay working all the way up till the October 1st date, and it's a seamless transition. For some of them, it may, if they don't have OPT, if they're coming off a second degree and they already used up their OPT, the practical training part earlier, then the employer may be in a situation where they have to wait a couple of months, where the employee or they make a job offer and this person has to leave the country, get a visa stamp, and come back in. So I think that's a key question when you're talking to people, is to try to investigate, what do they have OPT time? Do they? Some students have actually work authorization while they're enrolled as students, and that's known as a CPT, curricular practical training. So questions to ask are, okay, fine, you're graduating in May. What is your status between now and October? Okay. Then you have certain countries where visa applications. So the approval for the H-1B visa, all of that happens stateside. I should say H-1B status. That happens stateside. For people that are already in the U.S., you can have, under some situations, you can have a seamless transition, and they can continue to stay in the U.S. The approved H-1B will give them 3 years of work authorization, and you can extend it for another 3 years. So you get a total of 6 years. So, that's an important point, because employers must know that, okay, after 6 years, if you want to still keep this person, then you've got to think of some other category, like, assess them for a permanent resident visa. But the point about some of them having to travel outside, like recently we had, some countries, and especially with the pandemic, it became very hard. Some country embassies that were not staffed, and people that needed to go out and get visas and come back, employers had to figure out ways to have them work remotely, or justify extended absences while they got their visa stamping. So that's some, I want to just highlight some of these issues. Now, some of them, your H-1B employee has also family members, so that is an additional consideration. Like, a lot of them will ask for their spouse or their children, can they go to school, can they work, and that's a case-by-case sort of decision. Generally, spouses of H-1B workers are limited in their ability to work. They can go to school, but there's only special conditions under which spouses can work. So that's sometimes a consideration. You do have there's some legal fee, obviously, to pay the lawyer. There's fee that you pay to the US government. And I think this is a good point to quickly cover that, because that's like, people are thinking, okay, we have extra, these amounts are by law required to be paid by the employer. So this is not something that an employer can share with the employee. So I'll quickly go into the filing fee here. And there's an update in that. So there's a slight increase across all filing fees. So once you're selected in the lottery, then when you file the complete petition, with it, if you're a company with 26 or fewer full-time employees, 26 or more, you pay 780. For 25 or less, it's 460. There's a new fee, which is the asylum program fee, and that's also defined on this slide here. 600 for larger employers, 300 for smaller employers, and nonprofit organizations don't have to pay that. And then there's a premium fee, which is like the regular processing time can vary, and we can get to that. Like we can talk about like when you should premium and when you can sort of just let the normal processing take place. But in some cases, employers decide that they want to avail of a 15-day processing time frame, and they can pay an extra $2,805 and get the case processed within 15 business days. So your filing fee can be a little bit north of $6,000. So that's the filing fee side. Oh, Sam, just more in response to your question, the wages are regulated. So when you make a job offer, the attorney can help you determine for the job that you're advertising and the level of like the technical area, like are we talking about IT? Are you talking about a medical doctor, an accountant, a finance person, and then what part of the country are they working in? So the government has actually I've got a slide on this, and this can actually be useful. And this is important for the employers to know that what they're committing to is certainly we have minimum wage regulation, and we have obviously the market's competitive, so hiring talent, most employers will compete for that talent and offer competitive wages, but the H-1B positions require that employers certify that they're paying at the level and the geographically determined wage for a given candidate. So, for example, I've got on my screen here a sample, which is from a H-1B case. Give me 1 second, sorry. All right, yes, got too many devices. Sorry about that. So the way we analyze this is we go to a Department of Labor website, which is a database of multiple industries, and you see something called the SOC code. So once we get from the employer what they're hiring for, we then look at helping them determine the wage level. Okay, is it entry level? Is it 2 or 3 years experience versus all the way up to an expert level, which is the highest wage there. So we have to look carefully. Now the employer can decide if they want it to be a full-time job or a part-time job. They can set the number of hours, and that's a nice flexibility that the H-1B positions have. But we have to be careful that we're setting the wage appropriately. And then you see on the screen where you have accountants and auditors, and then you have accountants. So there, certain types of jobs can be done by folks, let's say, with a high school diploma and an associate's degree, right? So if there's the evidence shows that there's a lot of that a degree is not really required, where you'll see that the bottom accountants, it says five bachelor's degree required, all right, and then the other one above it says no level set. So it helps that you have this data supporting the job needing a bachelor's degree, right? So that's an important one, that H-1Bs are going to be like folks that are doing some technical work. You do, so anyway, so that's sort of on the technical side. Now, another obligation is that when a H-1B worker, under certain circumstances, an employer is required to pay for airfare back to their home countries. It's typically, I've not seen it utilized because a lot of the employees will either switch to another employer, but that is a one of the requirements. And so there are some on the H-1B side, like so a lot of employees want to get into the lottery, right? Because that's once they're coming off their degrees, they want to, they've chosen to come to the US because they want their, families and their lives and their professional success. They're coming from economies maybe that are, not as strong as the US, and they want their career here. So getting on the lottery is a big deal. Now, once they get the lottery, they are portable. Like they can then, even though, they're not authorized, they're limited, they're restricted to working for the petitioning employer only, right? So you might have a green card holder or a US citizen who can actually work for multiple employers, but H-1B employees generally will be limited to the employer that holds a petition. If they want additional work, they can get another employer to do another petition. But once they make it to the lottery, they are portable. So another employer could take over that lottery spot and file a transfer. So let me pause there, and let me Sam, anything else?
Yeah. We've heard about a lot of dates. We've heard about some timelines, and from my own perspective, I know that when I submit stuff, I'm never really sure when it's going to come back, and I'm wondering if you can highlight any factors that might influence the speed of how fast things get approved. Is there anything we need to be aware of in that area?
Yes, absolutely. So let me quickly give some context, right? So the specialty occupation, at the threshold, some positions, the kinds of evidence like you submit as proof that, okay, your organization needs a particular professional. So if you're a law firm, you need a lawyer. If you're a medical practice, you need a doctor. And some of these professions have very well established historical, it's like very hard to dispute that a lawyer needs at least a bachelor's degree, or an accountant, or other professionals, certain. So those professions that are not generally widely known, where the issue of whether a degree is needed or not, that's where we do spend some time trying to make sure that the employer understands, and we gather the evidence that shows that, okay, either in the industry generally, certain IT occupations are good examples, where you have some type of programming occupations that might be done by someone that doesn't necessarily have a bachelor's degree. And there's some hybrid positions in marketing or finance where, you may not need a bachelor's degree. But so to make the review quick, we have to start with our strongest evidence. So if you're in one of those professions, the attorney can help. And if it's not clear cut that the position requires a bachelor's degree, we can help. Like, we can help take the existing job description and through some, fine tuning, as long as, more than half of the job duties are, and that's an important one to remember, is that, we are allowed some flexibility. Every professional has some part of their day-to-day task that that falls under perhaps administrative or non-specialized. But as long as we can craft a job description that shows that, hey, more than half of the duties do require a bachelor's degree. So that's kind of like a generic foundational thing. Educational credentials, like if you have candidates that have degrees from other countries, if they have transcripts that are not in English, let's get them over to a credential evaluation company, get credentials evaluated, translations done in English. And then the online system now will change things. So in the past, we were submitting all these papers, via FedEx or UPS, whatever. Now we're going to be uploading documents. So we'll see. It's a work in progress. We'll see how it progresses. On the H's, you're really just evidence that you're paying the wage. There is a form once the lottery's done. The next step is getting an online LCA. That's a Department of Labor website where we select the occupation, the level, and enter the salary. Department of Labor typically takes 7 days to process and turn it around. So the sooner one starts that process, and then you get to the end, you get the LCA in hand. Something that can take time is this, like the job duties chart. And again, there's a judgment call because some jobs are very well known, like they're sort of, but even like I've had situations where even for like a lawyer or a doctor, I've had to argue that this specific job at this particular employer needs a bachelor's degree. And how you demonstrate it is you create a job duties chart where we create these for our employers, and so employers can think ahead and plan and state that alrighty, to this level of detail as you're seeing on the screen, list the job duty, list the percentage of time that is involved in that duty. This may be like a little bit overkill, and it's not necessary. I mean, I wouldn't say that every time we do an H-1B case we include one of these, but for certain positions it's a good practice to be able to articulate, okay, what part of this job requires the specifics that can only be taught at a bachelor's degree program. So having this information clearly laid out and available for the USCIS examiner to review and say, okay, yep, all right, look, yeah, this needs a bachelor's degree. That, because a lot of times we submit cases and the officer looks at it and we've sort of made conclusory statements, but we've not put in the detail to support that our claims. So what causes delay is that the officer will, you've paid for, let's say you've paid for the premium processing, and you paid for 15-day processing. So what a lot of times they do is they'll get the petition, they'll sit on it for 15 days, and on the last day they'll send a letter saying, oh, sorry, by the way, you know what, we don't think that this is a specialty occupation. We need you to demonstrate in very fine level of detail. And then you kind of, they'll give you 60, 70, 80 days to respond, and then we've got to go back. So it's better to have this prepared up front and even anticipate a request for evidence. Sometimes things like if you're a startup or you may get asked for what is ability to pay. So having good financial records available. So like companies that have at least 2 years of tax returns, that's sort of the regular type of common H-1B petitioner, but we do have startup H-1Bs as well, and you can apply based on a business plan. And a lot of startup H-1Bs can get asked for like evidence that that will actually have the funding to pay. So some homework up front, creating a nice business plan, having financial projections with clients in hand, revenues coming in. So those are some things that can help to keep cases moving and keep them from slowing down.
Just as a follow-up question,
Yeah.
are there any implications if the H-1B employees' job duties or even locations, if they change from the time you start this process to present? What steps should HR take to ensure the compliance?
Yes, that's a very important area because the geographic location is very important. There is something known as a metropolitan statistical area, MSA, and the H-1Bs are very tied to the physical location. So now, if somebody is working remotely, that's okay. I mean, the requirement is that for when it comes to location, we have to actually post the job. So the employer is supposed to put a posting at the work site or the principal place of business saying that there's a requirement to very strictly regulated notice to other employees that says that we are hiring an H-1B worker, here's what we're paying them, and this is their job site. Okay, so if the job site changes later to going outside the MSA, then an amendment is required because there's a change in the wage level. You have to, for reporting compliance, you need to file an amendment. And in a lot of situations, if it's within the same MSA, you may be able to get away without filing an amendment. The duties, I mean, we do have situations where, you have a employee that's getting a promotion and they're moving into more, complex duties. So, I mean, there it's like, the rule of thumb is that, if they're just progressing along the same profession and they're, kind of in a more responsible position and they're making more money, and it's like a natural progression, then I would say, okay, just wait until the normal renewal is due. And when you do the renewal, then you report the updated, like if it's, hired as an associate attorney and now they're a partner, then you can update and say that, okay, now this is a senior level person and we're renewing. But if there's a dramatic reduction in the hours, so you have to state, if you're, what happens is that if you say that, okay, we're hiring full-time, then the expectation is that the person is actually doing that work full-time, and that there are salary documents to back it up, because otherwise, on both sides, like the employee could fall out of status, which means that they're not in compliance with the conditions that they were granted, the H status for. And then the employer might also be in violation even of the regulations for unauthorized employment, that they're doing work that they're not authorized to. So I do recommend checking in on those instances with the attorneys to say, hey, do we need to do an amendment? And a lot of times you don't have to, but it's better, better safe than sorry. So, so some of these slides, they're I think, again, I mean, the environment of the actual criteria and case law and the substantive review, I'm not expecting a big change from prior years. It's more the process. These were some earlier developments that we saw some changes over the years to some professions where level 1 of certain occupations was not considered a specialty occupation. That there was some pushback there. There was something they had, in back in 2017 by American Hire American, employers had to basically show that they had some additional sort of subjective criteria to show that they're not impacting U.S. workers negatively. I mean, that stuff's not really a serious consideration right now. This one, I'll just cover quickly some points related to the actual when you do get the good news, like you do hear that, okay, our candidate was selected and we're going to move ahead. So just to plan ahead for it, like I would say, send out questionnaires. I mean, this is what, we try to do. We're essentially using the same questionnaire that we had last year. And it's got some basic information, address, work site, name of employee, job, and then we will send out information about the USCIS side, like once the organization accounts come online. So that's something to watch for. But it's designed so that the registration itself is fairly straightforward. There are some specific ways of payment which are yet to be seen. Like there's payments going to be online. There's some technical issues where the USCIS fee has to be paid by credit card. So between clients and lawyers, we'll work out what's practically we don't want cases being rejected because a credit card was declined. So we'll try to keep you all updated on as things progress. I mean, this is an older timeline, and I think we've covered it. But roughly, the timeline this year is similar. So we'll start, the lottery process in March, and then, through the rest of the year up until October is when, the first approvals can be effective, October 1. Okay. Some of this advice here on this slide also, I mean, obviously there are checks and balances now. The duplicate registrations are going to be, we're not going to be able to do them. We got to be careful about how we manage employers with multiple employees, and we'll see some issues are we're still watching. We don't yet have the exact information about whether there will be a second lottery and how this new system will work out. So let me, I think there's some question about, other options. Let me just talk a little bit about, like, what if you don't get selected in the H-1B lottery, and are there other options for, other than H visas? So there are certain countries, like, so watch for Singapore, Chile, Australia, Canada, Mexico, and there may be a few others which have special programs. There's a TN visa for Canadians and Mexicans, which is also professional grade employee, but it's in a much more limited list of occupations. There is for Australia, Chile, Singapore, there's separate visas that are not subjected to the cap. And then just real quick, I'll just talk about the so there's also the J visa in some situations. Some of your candidates who don't satisfy or don't make the lottery for a given profile, you can try a J visa, which is an intern or a trainee. It's also a very sort of narrowly defined program. It may be worth exploring. And then just to quickly introduce the long-term permanent resident visa. So, like, one of the natural questions is, like we discussed, that after 6 years, what do you do? So for candidates that are, the right, just give me 1 second. When you have a candidate which you want to sponsor for a green card there, so the H is a simpler process where you're just saying that you're paying them a particular wage and that they have the education. The green card part of this is mostly employers have to show that they've got a legitimate need and now there in the green card side, you can actually, it's open to other occupations that are not specialty occupation necessarily. The job description can be made by the employer, so you can have people that don't need a bachelor's degree. But you've got to show that you've tried to find a worker and you've not found one, and therefore now you have a foreign worker that qualifies, and you have to apply, and it's a longer process, multi-year process, but it doesn't have the element of the lottery, the uncertainty of the lottery. And so there's some more, on my bio, I've listed some more visa types, and that's whole alphabet soup. But there are other visa categories available other than the H-1B, and we can certainly assess on a case-by-case basis. I'm going to pause and look for any audience questions now. So let me see if we have any audience questions. Okay. So I have a question. Let me see. Then we have a question that says, if a candidate has a bachelor degree in engineering, like mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, but are working for artificial intelligence or a programming job, can we offer an H-1B job looking at their experience, but their relevant degree is in any other engineering discipline, having a STEM degree? So that's a great question. And it's more common than you think. I mean, to analyze that, what I would say, we do look at the entire subject matter, right? So you can get a degree that has a major, but within that major, you have some coursework. Like, so I would look in that case to see if there's any, programming related coursework that they did within that degree. There are ways to work with credential evaluations where you can have work experience be counted, and you can combine a degree with X number of years of work experience, and get a credential evaluation company to give you a credential evaluation that says that, hey, based on these academic credits plus your work experience, you have an equivalent of a US bachelor's degree in XYZ field. I would be cautious, right? I mean, you definitely want to do that assessment. I mean, I would say that yes, it's good to explore other options. I wouldn't just say don't do it, but it's worth a careful look at the entire profile and crafting the job duties in a way that tie to the education. And then if you can get an equivalency based on work experience, it's worth looking at. So if anybody has questions, please put them in the chat box. So I will now start wrapping up because we're close to 2. Let me pause, and Sam, I'll ask you if you want to offer any closing remarks here. Well, you're on mute. Sorry.
2 years into 3 years later into a pandemic, and I still can't unmute. As we conclude, I just want to remember that hiring foreign workers can certainly be a valuable strategy for building a diverse and skilled workforce. And for my HR professional colleagues that are here in the room, there are a few extra steps that I recommend. The first one is to remember to start small and strategically, and begin with a targeted recruitment for specific roles, and expand as you gain experience. Invest in your people, provide resources and support to ensure that both foreign and local employees feel very welcome and they can thrive. Utilize your resources and support that's around you. Mo and his colleagues here at Offit Kurman certainly can offer you a ton of guidance and assistance for any employer sponsoring a foreign worker. Focus, of course, on the human element beyond skills and qualifications. See the individuals and value their unique contributions. And of course, by embracing the challenges and opportunities, hiring a foreign worker can really become a positive and rewarding experience for your organization, your workforce, and the community that you are in. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sam. So I wanted to thank Michael Freestone. He is an immigration partner at our firm, and his bio and contact information is on this slide. Good luck. I think that this, just in conclusion, I will say that I do feel that, obviously the quota of 85,000 is very limiting for the size economy that we have, right? So, hopefully Congress and Senate and our government considers the needs of the economy and increases the quotas. I would consider there are some positions that nonprofit entities, nonprofits affiliated with universities, some types of organizations can qualify for cap exempt H's. So think about that. Please email me, call Michael, email him if you have any questions about if you have cases. We are we're in the process right now for getting the lottery registration submitted, and are preparing for the submissions. And then there are a lot of resources online. The American Immigration Lawyers Association has very good resources to help educate employees and employers. The USCIS itself is putting together a lot of programs where they're inviting employers and employees to get oriented in the new system. Okay. And then even though I am one of the immigration lawyers at Offit Kurman, we are a full service firm. We have offices in many cities across the East Coast and also in California. I have colleagues that specialize in multiple areas of law. So whether it's employment law related, HR related, business, contracts, tax, intellectual property, we can handle a wide variety of different types of legal matters for you. So feel free to reach out. Anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully you've learned some useful tips and pointers. Do reach out if you have any questions. We do these trainings for our employers. Would be happy to talk to you or any of your colleagues, as a free of charge orientation or consultation. So please do reach out. And again, thanks for dialing in, and I wish you a great rest of the day. Thank you so much. Thank